started. Who are we missing?
So far, Melanie, Craig, Richard, Nicole, and Virginia.
Okay.
Half of them.
Oh no, Virginia's here. Okay.
Is that VM whatever is
Yeah.
Virginia?
AWI.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm watching the participants list looking for new people.
That's okay. Okay. Well, I mean, we can get started at 6:05 just to give everyone.
Did anybody tell you that they were going to be absent this evening?
No, just Teddy and Krista. So not anyone person.
Okay.
Not any of the board members.
And anyone who's not speaking, could you please mute your microphones? Thank you. Melanie's here now. So we're
Okay.
missing Craig, Richard, Nicole.
Craig, Richard, and Nicole. Okay. Okay, I'll text them. I will text them and then we can get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. On June 2nd. Thank you everyone for, again, being on time, being here today. I know we have a pretty long agenda, but I'll try to get through it, even though, you know, the Padres already played today, so I know no one's running off anywhere. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda before we get started?
I do.
Yeah. Shane?
Yeah, under the consent agenda, it says 4742, and it should be 4741.
Got it. Yeah,
The
thank you.
typo.
Slip of a finger. You can't have even an odd on the same side of the street. Thanks, Shane. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Okay, Nicole's in. Awesome. Okay, Craig will be here in 5 minutes. Do I have a motion to accept? And with this, we'll also accept the consent agenda and the approval of project.
I'll move to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda.
Thank you, Jane. Do I have a second?
I'll
Thanks,
second.
Newman. But thanks. Okay, Tracy, will you please call the roll?
Melanie,
Here.
Chris, Chalupsky.
Here.
Thank you.
Our here is so a yes for in favor of approving the agenda with the consent agenda.
Anthony.
Here and yes.
I'm obviously here and I vote yes. Jane,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Craig here yet? Nope. Richard here yet? Nope. George?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes, here and yes.
Newman? Nicole?
Yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
Thank you. Minutes.
Good, yeah. Does anyone have any suggestions for the minutes? And then I'll also say, Mr. Ambert, I believe that was your project that we just approved. Hi. John, our former chair of the Ocean Beach Planning Board, is here with us today. I will go ahead and fill out Form 620 for you tomorrow morning and send that in. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Have any modifications or changes to the minutes?
I have something.
Yeah, I had 3 minor edits given to me by George. The on page 1, I changed scheduled to scheduled, where Teddy was talking about the peer community forum. On page 2, the community board questions about how many detox beds. It said intern instead of interim, so I changed it to interim. And there was on the last page, there was an if instead of it on we all want to see it come back when we were talking about the pier. So those were 3 edits sent to me by George. I've already made them. Who else
It
had?
sounded like Kevin.
Yeah,
the change?
one of the, I think Coda's report mentions sexy streets.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There was also something in there about learning the effort on the street vending. That should say leading the effort on street vending.
On Coda's stuff.
Yes, it was I think it was responding to some of my questions.
So I'll just make a note to look for, it says learning, but it should say leading. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a note. Okay, anything else? My typing.
Awesome. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes with the proposed changes?
I'll make that
move to
motion.
approve the minutes with the proposed changes.
So we'll
Thanks, Jane. And then I heard someone else that said, I'll make that motion. So we'll just count that as a second. Was that Melanie?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I'm good with voices, but not with faces. Okay. So moving right along.
Do we want to?
Representatives report. So as I mentioned,
Do you want to take a full vote?
oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Melanie, you seconded, just so I'm assuming you're going to say yes. Chris?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
I say yes. Jane voted. So you're going to say yes.
Yes.
Unless you changed your mind in a second. Tom?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Is Craig here yet? Nope. Richard here yet? Nope. George?
Yes.
Andrea? Newman? Oh, Newman.
Yes.
Nicole? Virginia?
Yes.
All right.
Richard has joined the meeting.
Richard has just now joined the meeting. All right, cool. Thank you
Hi,
for letting-
Richard. Did you have any, we just voted to approve the minutes. Did you have any changes? Are you good with that? That Tracy sent out the draft minutes?
Good afternoon. I don't know what you just said, but yes.
We just approved the minutes. You're okay, great. Thanks, Richard. All right, so as I was saying, Teddy and Coda both were not able to come to the meeting tonight. I will not hazard any guesses why, but I think you can text me separately and ask if you want. But Coda did send in a report. So the new parks master plan actually came out today, and I will make sure to send it to everyone tomorrow and have it out on the website so we can all look at that. But I'm also sure it's on the city's website. So if you want to Google that tonight, that is out. He had a long update on the franchise agreement, but the franchise agreement that Mayor Gloria negotiated was passed. I'll just read what the agreement was. The tentative agreement it provides nearly $3 billion in revenue to the city over 20 years, including an unprecedented bid payment from utility shareholders of $80 million. 70 electric, 10 million gas, the highest any city in the US has ever received, 20 million to advance the city's climate equity goals, 10 million in solar energy rebates in historically underserved neighborhoods, an energy cooperation agreement, which focuses on environmental and greenhouse gas reduction benefits, safety, equity, and reliability, all while centering on the needs of historically underserved communities. There will be biannual audits by independent auditor included, as well as the creation of a citizens-focused franchise compliance review committee, which ensures public engagement on energy matters. The tentative agreement includes an initial term of 10 years with a potential for a 10-year renewal. The City Council may terminate after 10 years for any reason. The City Council approved all this with a vote of 6-3. And with the 2 amendments, have SDG&E pay half of the $20 million in climate equity contributions within the first 5 years of the agreement, and SDG&E officials appear before the City Council once a year to explain its rates, which are, as we all know, the highest in California. I know I just paid my bill today. So moving on to the budget, the May revise of the mayor's budget made the following additions: libraries to be reopened for services 7 days a week, the second phase of the city's pay equity study, salary increases for most city employees to make their pay more competitive with other local agencies. So that was the budget. And then the final update is on the OB Pier. The pier was partially reopened Friday the 28th, and OBTC had a thorough town hall last week. It is, I think, up on their Facebook page. So if you did miss the town hall, please go ahead and go to their Facebook page and give it a listen. So that was the updates from the mayor's office. As I mentioned, Teddy didn't send me any updates from council's office, but if you have questions for either of them, please reach out directly via email. Okay, and we do have a new representative with us, Reed Cole. He will now be representing Senator Tony Atkins' office. So Miller is no longer with us. He's still alive, though. I saw him walking his dog on Newport a few days ago. So he's doing well. I'm sure he just got a promotion. But Reed, I'm going to turn the floor over to you for any updates from the senator's office.
Hey, folks. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here right now. Brand new representative, like Andrea said. So I'm just going to mainly cover over budget updates right now. The budget's really big up in the state. Right now, the legislature's more or less come to an agreement on the budget, but there still is some final negotiations going on. Before the June 15th deadline, budget's expected to pass, but there's a lot of big proposals in the budget that I'll just quickly go over. So biggest thing to note is that right now the state of California is experiencing a record surplus. It's projected that we're going to get around $100 billion for a surplus, and that's including federal aid too on top of that. The big proposals laid out in the budget so far, one would be universal TK or transitional kindergarten. That's expected to be across the whole state and will provide 4-year-olds and young children a transitional pathway to get into kindergarten. On top of that, too, there's also proposals to make debt-free college a reality in our state by expanding our grant program for lower and middle income students. There's also a record amount of revenue invested into homelessness. Right now, there's still, it's more or less in line with the governor's proposal, but there's still some talks about like what that final number is. Regardless of what it's going to be, though, there's billions of dollars that are planned to be invested into homelessness. On top of that, too, there's also plans to provide more relief to small businesses to help recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, more relief for our renters to help pay back bills that they may have missed during this pandemic. On top of that, there's billions of dollars invested into drought mitigation and wildfire resilience, as well as broadband for all across the state. In addition to that, too, I'll just quickly go over some of the bills that Senator Atkins has moved over, as I move forward onto the assembly. So the first is SB 9, which we'll cover later on in this meeting. That just passed the Senate in a bipartisan vote last Wednesday on the 26th. So now it's moved over to the assembly. Senate Bill 1 is the coastal mitigation bill that the senator authored. Essentially, that'll provide additional resources. Part of what it does is it provides additional resources to local governments through grants to help prepare for sea level rise, for climate change. That also passed in a bipartisan vote on Monday, the 24th last week, and that moved over to the assembly as well. That'll go over to the Natural Resources Committee. That's all I have for the time being, but I'll post my my email address in the comments, and then also post the newsletter too if you're interested in getting updates from our office. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Reed. And welcome to your first meeting. I do have a question about the grants for colleges. Is there any talk? I guess my first question is, how are those distributed out? And then is there any talk about also tying those grants to possibly a few years of service for the state or anything of that nature?
Not that I've seen. More the main part of the proposal is expanding the Cal Grant program to include just more aid generally with students, but I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Senator Tony Atkins' office? Okay, wonderful. We are going to get a presentation about the housing bills that are moving. So if you do have any questions about those, it will be the time to ask them. Okie dokie. So now we're going to move on to non-agenda public comment. I would ask anyone at this time if they are seeking to make a non-agenda public comment. If you're seeking to comment on anything on the agenda that's has a number next to it, please save it for that number. But if you are seeking to make a non-agenda public comment, please let me know in the chat, or you can utilize the raise hand function. Give it a second.
Looks like John had a question. Did you raise your hand, John?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, John. Go for it.
Thank you, guys. Nice to see all of you again. Nice to speak with my fellow board members from long ago. Hello. I just wanted to give you guys an update on 4743 Santa Cruz Avenue. This is an existing single-family home on the 4600 block of Santa Cruz with a basement area that was recently illegally converted into an ADU. The process has gone through code enforcement, and we've asked the enforcement officer to issue the citation. They did so over the weekend, and it's been posted. All this is to say is that an individual bought a large home, converted the basement into an ADU, rented it, and started the rental process. It was reported, but ultimately the process for going through and getting the coastal development permit is up to the applicant. They have, from the time it was posted, I believe it was the 30th of May, they have 4 months from that time to complete their permit process for the building permit and the CDP. So as you maybe all know, a CDP process typically takes about 12 months or 14 months. So it's unlikely that this individual will be able to secure a CDP in that 4-month timeline. But I'm just informing you of what the code enforcement official told me over the phone. I did not respond via email, did not provide any more information specifically as to how they're taking action on this specific item.
I got a real quick one on that, if I may.
Yeah.
What was the turnaround time for code enforcement on that one, John?
They were approximately 6 weeks, but I believe we reported this back at March, and it was unregistered. So the first time they registered the report, it was in April, and then it was finally completed at the end of May. So about 6 weeks.
Thank you. Thank you for reporting it. And then also thank you for looping me in on it. It's certainly not surprising, but sad to see. But thank you, John. Okay, do we have any other further public comment, non-agenda?
basic.
Is
Lola home right now?
She'll be home soon.
Oh, if you're not speaking, will you please just remember to mute your mic? Okay, so I don't see any non-agenda public comments. So we're going to go ahead and move into the first action item, which is 4636 Del Monte Avenue. Do I have the applicant for that project present?
Yes. Hi, Steve Lombardi.
Hi, Steve. Welcome. You should be able to share your screen. Do you see it at the bottom? Steve.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, perfect. We see it. You're good to go. You now have the floor. And then after his presentation, we'll open it up for board and public comment.
Okay, so the drawing that you're looking at is the existing house on Del Monte with the garage. This existing house we're converting to a ADU unit. And this is the present configuration. We're not altering, we're not adding, we're not subtracting. We're keeping the house exactly the way it is. These 4 images show exactly what the house looks like. The only thing that we are adding is to the garage, we're adding a deck, which you'll see a little later on in the drawings. So the garage, which if you're looking at the north elevation, that roof, that smaller roof, the lower roof from the main house will turn into a deck, a viewing deck, and will only be from the top of the existing roof will only be about a foot higher than what you see. The house is typically, it's a white cement plaster building on all 4 elevations, has an asphalt shingle roof. And as I said earlier, even the railing system, we're keeping exactly the way it is with the shutters and the whole bit. The only thing that we might add is a white roof to go with the white building. This existing ADU represents 784 square feet. The garage is 255 square feet. You can see the backyard in the south elevation. That's where the 2 proposed units are going. This is an aerial view of the existing house, which is white, and you can see the deck over the garage. The proposed 2 units are, this is a roof plan, so the blue is the solar collectors on the roof. And you can see there's basically a close to 10 to 12 foot space between each of the buildings. The footprint represents 60% open space and 40% of footprint. So the idea was to try to maintain as much open space as possible. This is on a 50 by 140 lot. The FAR was 0.75, which would equate to, would give us, the lot is 6993. The allowable FAR is 5245. Our proposed FAR is 4549. I'm going to show you the picture of the images of the proposed units in the back first, and then I'll present the drawings. From my level, from the street, this is about what you're going to see. It's the buildings that are in back of the existing house have a lower profile, and the only thing that you'll see basically is the roof eave and the roof line. Moving towards the east elevation, looking west towards the ocean, the buildings are you know, the roof line is angled to 33 degrees, which is the solar orientation. We've the materials are distinctly different than the front house, purposely to not only break the bulk and scale, but to change materials on each elevation. The gray represents a kind of recycled barnwood, and the kind of light beige or brown rustic is going to be a Corten metal panel. Looking directly east, you can start to see how the building's broken up with the roof line and basically the scale to the existing house. Again, even though the back unit, which is the garage, 4-car garage off the alley with the unit above, the unit is creating the back unit creates a T shape, but complementing roofs again and materials are breaking the scale in this case. This is looking about from the alley, looking again at the east elevation. And here you can certainly see them. The metal, typically metal Corten material is used on what I call the north and south elevation, or northwest southwest elevation, and then the wood is used on the east and west side opposing. Looking from the alley, 2 cars in each garage door. We have a total requirement of 5 car space requirements, so there's 4 back here off the alley, and the existing garage in the front is maintained as the 5th car. The west elevation basically complements, is similar to the east elevation, where each of the building is broken up into materials, which reduces the scale and gives it kind of like a little small kind of village typology. At this angle, you see the deck over the ADU unit. That's a viewing deck. And again, as you move back towards the alley, the recycled barnwood is used on the both on the west and east elevation. Alternates then with the Corten material, which breaks the separation of material and scale. And then towards the back, again, we break the elevation with 2 different materials, both wood and Corten. The existing house, as I said earlier, was 784 square feet. This proposed site plan, you can see the separation of building and try to optimize the footprint of the open space. This is the landscape plan, and we're maintaining the existing trees and then adding both a tree and a pervious surface. We're going to use a lot of the roof drainage, the water drainage off the roof onto the site, pretty much almost 100%. This is the ground level plan, and you can see the 4 cars off the alley to the right-hand side of your screen. The 5th car is, again, off of Newport. That's an existing condition. The floor plan of the ADU stays exactly the way, which is a 2-bedroom house. The middle building is a 2-bedroom with a shared bath. The back unit has both 2 bedrooms down below. All the bedrooms are on the ground level, and all the call it the kitchen, dining, and living areas are on the 2nd level. There are some small small views to the ocean, which is very small in this case. And as I said, that we're required 5 cars as a calculation below 2.25. The 3rd level, as I mentioned earlier, is more of the public space, which is living, dining, and there's a deck. There's 2 decks. Actually, there's 2 decks off the center building, the middle building. Let's call it west and east deck, and then the end unit towards the alley has a larger deck that fronts on both side yard and alley. We don't need to go through the window and door schedule. This is the roof plan. Pretty much in the third level. There's nothing really new in this plan to talk about. So in the sections, the buildings are, you can see how they're broken up. The existing front building is a 1-story. The middle building is 2-story. The third building is a 2nd story. I don't want to regurgitate on what's going on in the elevation because I think the renderings show that, but you can see the materials again, the vertical panels or the Corten, the more denser material, the 4-inch barnwood is depicted in a vertical in a vertical direction. East and north. There is a deck which I didn't mention in the renderings on the back building. The deck is in the center and has an exterior stair which is a viewing deck between you can see the back building between the 2 peaks of the roof. That's a open rail system. Elevations, drainage and grading. As I said earlier, a lot of the water off the roof is going to be drained onto the site. That basically does it. Just to kind of recap, house 1, house 2 and 3 represent 4,549 square feet. The FAR was 5,245. We're about 700 square feet less than what we're allowed. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and ask Kevin to give us a recap of what was discussed at the project review committee, and then we'll move on to public comment and board questions. If you do want to make a comment about this in the meantime while Kevin's speaking, please either utilize the raise hand function or let me know that you want to make a comment in the chat. Thank you.
Hi. So we reviewed this, I guess 2 weeks ago at our project review committee meeting. The vote was unanimous to recommend approval, but without putting it on the consent agenda. There was some comments and questions about the sort of the unique finishes and how that would fit in with the with the neighbors. There was some comments about, the sight lines impacting the neighbors. And I received one email comment that was more, I guess, a critique of 3 units going on to one of these lots. Most of these lots are lower density. And again, the vote was 4-0 to recommend approval of the project.
Kevin, I see Tracy has her hand up.
Yeah, hi. Stephen, I was wondering, has any consideration been given to the front house at all to match the style of the back house? Like maybe incorporating some of that wood and metal into the front house so that it doesn't look so incredibly drastically different? Even just painting it a different color to match would at least blend it in, because it's like this tiny little house next to these really modern looking houses, and it just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb to me. So I don't know if it's been considered at all to try to integrate some of the design of the back houses into the front house just to blend it a little bit better.
Yeah, there was no interest in doing that. I wanted the existing house to be distinctly different as a traditional house. The back units speak on their own. And no, I don't see any point in painting or trying to match it, because that would, the whole idea of the existing house is to stand on its own. The roof forms of the two back units symbolize a traditional style, because and have a function which is 33 degrees for solar. So yeah, I can't say that I appreciate your comment, because it was not something that we had an interest in. I want to keep traditional buildings exactly the way they are and let the new buildings speak for themselves. One thing I didn't mention too is that the new units have a rain screed wrapping in the elevation of the roof. This alleviates heat gain. I don't know if you're familiar, the board's familiar with the rain screed, but there's a 3/4 inch airspace in the elevation, which is to reduce heat gain and to create a cavity of which moisture and water can go down through the wall and exit at the base of the building. So there is a lot of attempt to not only make it distinctly different aesthetically, but functionally a sustainable rain screed method, which we have used with this owner before, is a very successful way of getting rid of heat gain and letting the buildings breathe.
Thank you, Stephen. I see Chris's hand up next. Chris?
Thanks, Andrea. I just wanted to add to Kevin's sort of summary of the PRC. On review of the minutes, I wanted to clarify one comment that I had discussion during that meeting about, which was kind of what we're talking about here, the material choices. And comment was that that the material choices may be out of character for the rest of the homes in the area. And that wasn't necessarily a critique, but it was an observation. It definitely was not an advocation that everything should be a stucco building. We kind of had that discussion as well. But I do think it's important to give some consideration and some relation to what do the surrounding properties look like. Again, we don't want everything to look exactly the same, but I think the discussion that we're already starting to have here a little bit is what I was trying to outline in the PRC setting. And again, not a critique. I'm all for variation, but yeah, for me, I guess my inquiry into that wasn't really resolved during the PRC, and I think we just heard the applicant shut it down pretty quickly. And from my perspective, it's important to think about what the other buildings look like on the street. Again, not that we want them all to look alike. So.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that because, being a local architect and living in this area for close to 35 years, not only being familiar with Ocean Beach, but living and owning property. Ocean Beach has and will be an eclectic neighborhood. And I think the introduction of new materials is just an ongoing design element that can be part of Ocean Beach. But yeah, the discussion about trying to match the neighborhood, I think is probably not a good conversation to have, because if we all look the same, then why do we do what we do? I think there's an intention here, and the intention is pretty clear. I could, which I've done in the past. I've usually presented an eclectic Ocean Beach, showing you traditional, modern, ranch, Spanish, which I think all of Ocean Beach enjoys, an eclectic architectural style that is not symbolically the same.
And I'll just say it again, I'm not proposing that every building should look alike. My comment is simply about giving consideration to the surrounding properties and putting yourself in the shoes of those neighbors that are living there, and what might be a more seamless transition to different styles of architecture, different material finishes. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Chris. I see George's hand up.
Yeah, that open deck between the two buildings, something that I didn't realize the first time I saw the plans, is there the possibility that you're going to get a reflection off the array from the second building onto that deck that might, at certain time of the day, might be quite a glare? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really. Which building are you talking about? The deck?
It's the deck that transcends between the what would be the second and the third building. You've got a guy standing there and it looks like you have a glass.
Oh, you're talking about the rooftop deck.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, sure.
On that second roof, would there be a time of day where you might get a glare onto that deck from the array?
Possible.
I didn't know if you'd taken that into consideration.
The solar collectors, either being dark blue or in some black, don't really produce much of a glare, but there might be I call a small glare, but the whole idea, I think, of the darkened photovoltaic cell array is that it actually produces very little glare and to absorb the sun. So I'm not, I'm not sure that would happen, but I doubt very much. Well, I've done the same solar array right across the street for the same owner, and even though that those are hidden, they don't really produce much glare because of the dark color of the silicon.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, George. I see. Okay, so I'm going to get to Anthony and Nicole next. I do have one important question in the chat. Susan Booth, the architect's set plans, so the plans you presented today show that the existing garage will remain, but there is a set of development plans that show the garage removed. She would like to know which set of plans is the one that will be built.
We're showing tonight, and the one that we showed 2 weeks ago.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So was that just a previous plan, and upon the parking issue came up, you kept the garage?
Yeah, the first submission, we wanted to do away with the garage. We later found out through transportation that because we're required 5 cars, we wanted to leave that garage there for that 5th car. And yeah, that was right after the first submission. We made that decision, not only with the owner, but with the city.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Okay, I have, like I said, a couple more. I have Anthony and Nicole. I do just have 5 more minutes slated for this item. So, ask your questions, but in a brief manner, I would say. Anthony, you're up.
Sure, I'm a fast talker. Just to clarify, between the ADU and the second unit, I see a deck there. Is that correct? It spans over the space between the 2 units, like yeah.
I'm going to go to that view.
Okay, please. I wasn't sure. I just wanted it because from some of the oh, there we are. Okay, where the gentleman's standing there in the rendering. Okay, so that there, will that deck be that width as well? That depth? Because it looks from the rendering that it goes butts right against the eave of the ADU.
Yeah, it's about a foot away from the existing roof.
Okay, and then the second building. I mean, I was a little confused as well. There's 3 buildings on site, right? Proposed. There's the existing.
Correct.
Unit 2 and Unit 3. Unit 3, the garage is adjacent to the alley, and so the bedrooms are downstairs in that middle section there above the deck. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. The bedrooms are on the ground floor. On the second level, there is a master bed on the 3rd level, which you're looking at with those 2 windows on the wood side of the back building.
Okay. All right.
So on the rear building, there's 2 bedrooms below, a bedroom on the second level, and then the majority of living, dining, and kitchen is on the second level, where that stair goes up to the deck. It's, yes.
Very good. All right, thank you. Appreciate your help answering.
Go on to Nicole.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on the earlier discussion about architectural styles. And I think that one of the things I most appreciate about Ocean Beach is how many different architectural styles there are in our community. I think this looks great. I did have a question though about the kind of finish that is represented here in the orange. Is that sort of like a distressed metal? Can you talk a little bit more about the finish there? I can see.
Yeah,
why-
sure.
Go ahead.
It's a 4x8 Corten metal panel that we would like it to rust through time. So it has this kind of orangey rusted hue, but more to look as a rustic look, just like the barn wood. Recycled barn wood would have a lot of that recycled wood would be distressed and be uneven, as opposed to being a color that is constant. The color both in the gray wood and of the Corten would vary on each panel because it would weather differently.
I think it's very modern and a beautiful building. As a neighbor, probably I wouldn't be too thrilled about looking at a rusty wall, but I think with the landscaping that you've shown here, it's a nice balance of, the sort of industrial barn look and natural space. I think it's a very nice building.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Virginia? And do we have anyone else?
I wanted to say that at first glance, it's not really to my taste, but the more I look at it, I appreciate the fact that it's not a group of cubes stacked up, that the roof lines are very nice, complementing the original building. And even though the surfaces of each building are flat planes without any small articulation, the relationship between the buildings provides some articulation. So it's, as a modern building, it's pretty nice, I think. And with it, the other advantage that really is that the use of the rainwater and the technology for keeping the heat gain down. So overall, I think it's a nice project.
Thank you, Virginia. All right, so we're running up onto time of this item. Do I have any final questions or comments or a motion?
I have a
Jane?
comment. Yeah. I like the project because I think it's in compliance with our community plan where we build in back of the unit in front. And I like the fact that they're keeping the unit in front exactly as it is. And the building in the back, which is on the, is there an alley here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the alley is very, very nice.
Thank you, Jane. Does anyone have a motion for this project?
I'll move to approve the project as submitted.
Thank you.
Second.
Nicole? Okay, wonderful. Tracy, can I call the roll? And Stephen, you can stop sharing your screen.
So just to reiterate, we have Jane is the first, right?
Nicole seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Melanie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Jane,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes, and I hope you keep that railing on the front house to match the rest of the finishes on the front house.
Craig.
Yes.
Did Richard ever show up?
Yes, and yes.
Okay, thank you. George,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes, approved.
Newman,
Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
Virginia.
Yes.
All right. Got us all.
Thank you. And then that vote was how many people do we have now versus when we approved the agenda, Tracy? Just for my notes.
14 people
Okay.
voted yes.
Okay, and then
Versus 2 that weren't here when we approved the agenda.
got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, wonderful. So Stephen, I will fill out your form 620 as well tomorrow morning. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and moving on, we have sorry, we have Deanna Sven from Tony Atkins' office to give us just a little overview of the different housing bills that are going through the Senate right now. So that way we can know if there's anything that should be on our radar that we should be weighing in on to Senator Atkins' office. So Deanna, I'm going to give you the floor and then I will open it up for questions from the board and the public. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Yes? Perfect. I am Tony's district policy director, and I've been with her. This is my 9th year, and before then, 9 years with Senator Chris Kehoe. So, and I'm a longtime community planning group member in my community of Tierrasana. It's fun to watch another group meet. It's always interesting. Right now, we have a package of bills going through the Senate, and the Assembly has an additional package of housing-related bills. There was a decision over a year ago by both houses to focus on what we could do to meet the critical need for new housing within the state. The housing need for San Diego County alone is over 171,000 new homes to meet the needs over the next decade. And when you look at what is required statewide, there was a definite feeling in the Senate to put together a package to try to address some of the those needs. So they're all on different themes. The first bill is Senate Bill 5, and that's actually a bond measure that will be put onto the 2022 November election. And right now it's a placeholder. It's just sitting there until next year when, based on what bills do get passed and what new programs that are in support of affordable housing and also the missing middle housing for the working population to try to improve the odds of getting new housing built in the state. So Senate Bill 5 is a placeholder until next year. Senate Bill 6 was approved 32-2 by the Senate and is currently in the Assembly. It's the Neighborhood Homes Act by Senator Caballero, and it authorizes residential development on existing lots that are currently zoned for commercial, office, and retail space, such as strip malls or large big box retail spaces. We've all seen big changes in land use in our cities as some of the traditional large department stores and home improvement stores have shut down. And when we look at places like Horton Plaza and what was done at the University Town Center, where 4,000 new housing units were added to the periphery of that shopping center, and a new transit station will be fully operational at the end of this year, first of next year. It's adding on to the options that are available by saying that commercial zones are ripe areas to be converted to housing and to do some streamlining in that process. Senate Bill 7 that Tony authored this year has already been signed by the governor. It sailed through the Senate and the Assembly, and it was a 34-0 vote out of the Senate and a 70-1 vote in the Assembly. Senate Bill 1 compresses the judicial review period in CEQA so that there's a maximum of 270 days that a lawsuit can be filed against a proposed housing development. The housing development has to be a minimum investment of $15 million up to $100 million in homes and in the parks and other development that goes along with doing major developments like that. And the hope is that this bill, which extends a previous bill that had been in place to help build sports arenas and stadiums and large commercial projects, by adding some of the smaller, starting at $15 million for housing development, to give that same streamlining impact. It's a 5-year lifetime and then it sunsets. So developers have to start working as soon as possible to submit their proposals to the governor. And the governor has to say that it would be a major economic improvement to a local region within the state in order to approve it and start it through its normal sequence of CEQA review. But instead of having up to 2 years to file a lawsuit, it's compressed down to 270 days to file a lawsuit to bring up issues. So that's Senate Bill 7. Senate Bill 8 was approved 30-2 in the full Senate and is now pending hearing dates in the Assembly. It continues what was in a previous piece of legislation, Senate Bill 330, which was passed in 2019, and it extends the provisions of that bill until 2030. It adds clarifying language to ensure that the intent of Senate Bill 330 was to streamline the production of housing, and that it meets a local jurisdiction's existing zoning and other rules. No new opportunities to change. It strengthens local decisions on what is allowed in approving housing projects. Senate Bill 9 is a hot bill for Tony. There are a lot of stories about what Senate Bill 9 does and doesn't do. Basically, it says that if you have a single family zoned lot, that you can split that lot into 2 lots if the result is a minimum of 1,200 square feet per lot, of which the units that would be built have to take a space that you have to maintain enough land on those 2 lots so that only 40% of the original acreage is still being developed. So you can't build to the edges of the property lines. You can maintain all of your setbacks that the city normally would have, 4 feet from the back, 4 feet between homes, the property line between homes. those 2 units could then have an ADU added to it. So a maximum of 4 units per property that started as a single family zoned lot and split in 2 is an option, but it doesn't have to. So you could have 2 units, you could have 4 units, depending upon how large the lot is, and maintaining the setbacks that local zoning has. The other thing about that is you cannot use that change in the law, that proposed change in the law, in an historic district, and you're familiar with historic districts. So those are, you cannot develop in those. You can't develop in a high fire severity zone. You don't have a lot of canyons or open space with a lot of dense brush in OB. But about 2/3 of the city of San Diego would not be eligible to use Senate Bill 9, because the map for the city of San Diego, about 2/3 of the area is in the very high fire severity zone. And if you'd like to see what that map looks like, you can go to the city of San Diego's website, sandiego.gov, and in the search facility, you can look for very high fire severity zone, and the map will pop up. And it basically, if you have a canyon in your community, you're part of that zone. And it is defined by CAL FIRE. And the map that is currently approved was done after the 2003 and 2007 fires that raged through San Diego County, as you recall. We lost almost 10,000 homes during those 2 fires. My community is entirely I live in Tirasana. My community is entirely within the very high fire severity zone. There isn't a block that isn't. I lost my fire insurance. I now have the privilege of paying $6,600 a year for fire insurance because that map came out. So it's not something that you can build in, and that's existing law that says that. This bill does not add that as a new criteria. Existing ADU law says you can't do that. The other hot bill that's out there is Senate Bill 10 by Senator Wiener. And it says that if you have a lot that is in a high transit zone area, and it defines what high transit zone is, then you can add up to 10 units on a lot that has the floor area ratio capacity to take that and still meet your local zoning requirements. So think the trolley system, and think where you have existing lots that can be either redeveloped or that haven't been built on yet. And up to 10 units can be streamlined in their approval process. The bill was recently amended. It previously said that it could also be in a jobs-rich area, and that's been stricken. So now it is totally transit-oriented, and it cannot be in a very high fire severity zone. It cannot be in an historic district. So those basic protections are still in place. It defines a high quality transit corridor, bus corridor, as one that has a minimum of 2 bus lines that run no more than 15 minutes apart. So you've got buses all day and all night, and you have to maintain the 3 peak hours between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. There are actually 4 hours there. So the city decides which 3 hours you have to have transit operating. And that's Monday through Friday. And the 3 peak hours in the afternoon between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then Saturdays and Sundays, you're still required to have double bus service, basically with 2 separate bus lines, at least every 20 minutes. And that's between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Saturday and Sunday and holidays. So there are very few areas. If you ever look at the Metropolitan Transit System and the bus schedules, there are very few areas within the city that have transit service at that height. SANDAG is proposing to implement high transit bus service and improve the number of light rail and heavy rail runs. And that could open up other areas on those lines for development using Senate Bill 10. It is basically, it sort of implements part of what SANDAG is proposing in its 5 Big Moves program. Those are, oh, and then we have 4 more. Senator Skinner has Senate Bill 290, which was approved by the Senate 33-4. And it allows low-income student housing projects to be developed on community college lands, and it makes it more, it streamlines the process for how doing student housing can happen. Senate Bill 330 by Senator Durazo was just amended this last week. It's being sponsored by the Los Angeles Community College District. It has had no opposition. It's pending a vote in the Senate right now. It is also a community college district oriented bill. The LA Community College District has an urgent need for housing. They have a significant number of their students who are living in cars, who do not have regular housing available to them, and it's sorely needed in their area, and it has strong support. Senate Bill 477 was approved in the Senate 46-0. It's waiting to be assigned to committees in the Assembly. It includes additional funding and direction for Project Room Key, which is one of the ways we've been facilitating moving homeless off the street into motels that have been bought or hotels that have been bought, and to get them shelter. The numbers in San Diego, a year ago in April, the number of tents downtown was 50 after the city started an aggressive program, opening the convention center site, opening 20th and B area for temporary housing for the homeless. The state facilitated the purchase of several motels and local hotels. We put people into it. So we had 50 tents last April. This April, when the Downtown Partnership went out at 2 in the morning to count tents, there were 150 downtown. We made some improvements. There's not enough. There are still homeless. In Los Angeles, there are 57,000 homeless, 57,000, of which there are beds in shelters for about 27,000. The rest are outdoors. And if you've been in LA recently, it is a challenge. These bills will provide some additional funding and through the housing bond that'll be on the 2022 ballot, and through streamlined programs that the bill would enable. Senate Bill 478 by Senator Wiener was passed by the Senate this last week, 29-5, and it allows the construction of small multi-family projects, 3 to 10 units, in areas already zoned for multi-family housing by ensuring that artificially low floor area ratio regulations do not stop an otherwise allowable project. So what it says is that a local government cannot arbitrarily adjust the FAR to say no to this project or that project. You have to meet specific standards. And the final bill is Senate Bill 791, which is currently pending a vote. And it creates a technical assistance unit within the Department of Housing and Community Development that will provide assistance to local cities and counties to help them plan and finance and build affordable housing on their surplus land. So that would be land that a city or a county has already declared surplus and is available for a project. And that's the Senate housing project list. It's like a great, aircraft carrier. You're trying to get through the bureaucracy and get across the line. But we're doing well so far. Happy to take questions.
Yes, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I don't know if Anthony, okay, because I think Virginia kept her hand up from the last time. So we'll start with Anthony, and then I saw Nicole's hand, but Virginia, do you have a question? Cool. So Anthony, you have the floor. I see you, Craig, too, and Chris.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Deanna, for the comprehensive listing. I have a question regarding the housing bill. One of the earlier ones you mentioned about for the single residential family home lots. And I understand the intent for these bills are to increase affordable housing, right, throughout the city or throughout the state. One thing that I didn't hear, and maybe you can expand that or correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't hear any provisions in these bills or in their synopsis to ensure that affordable housing is being done, meaning that, we've noticed anecdotally or through experience that a lot of the provisions for affordable housing end up becoming unaffordable, either through, vacation rentals or other means. So is there anything to close the loophole to ensure that these properties, if they are taking advantage of these laws, if they're passed, to ensure that there's affordable housing, increasing the housing stock for those people that currently cannot live here or afford to live here?
I should have mentioned that Senate Bill 9 specifically says that short-term rentals are prohibited permanently on that property. Senate Bill 9 also has language that says this is designed for a property owner to add units to his or her property. It is not designed for developers to come in and do speculative housing projects. You must, to be eligible under SB 9, you have to be the property owner. A city or county can require that for a minimum of 1 year, the property owner must remain on site after the project is done. So it can be required that at least for 1 year it is owner occupied. And the intent is that this is for the families where they may have multi-generational people all living under one roof. We know that's happening now. And it gives them an opportunity to do one of two things. Their family members could be in the ADU that is constructed, or in the second unit that is constructed on their property, or they can use it to get rental income for the family and provide an additional source of income.
Thank you. I have just one follow-up question then. It sounded like the bill allows for the 1 year freezing of the use of that property, but that is, that's a local municipal ordinance that would have to be enacted to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, so the city could make that a requirement that in using Senate Bill 9, that all the projects would require, the owner to remain on site. And also there is a prohibition for two adjacent parcels of land to both utilize the benefits of Senate Bill 9. So this is not a thing where suddenly a developer could come in and take over a block and make everything, a multifamily situation. This is a case by case, unit by unit.
Okay, thank you.
And you do have to have minimum lot size, parcel sizes when you're done.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm going to go right down. I saw Nicole next. So I'm going to go Nicole, Chris, and Craig. So
thank you so much, Deanna, for that great update that you gave. I just had a quick question on earlier in your talk. You had mentioned the missing middle. Can you speak a little bit more to what Senator Atkins is doing to help the middle class? We're just getting shut out of the housing market. There's a lot of luxury townhomes downtown that are just sitting empty because no one can afford them. What can we do to help the middle class get into housing?
Part of this is if you just take your lot and it's large enough to do it and split it into 2 units, then you have enough space for a family. If you end up putting your parents or grandparents into that ADU, it's a unique situation, case by case. There are units in downtown San Diego that are only 440 to 500 square feet. And those are designed to meet some of the missing middle requirements. I could never live in something that small, but when I was in the university, we did. You cope with whatever you have to deal with. But
that doesn't work for a family with 2 children, though. I mean,
I know. So there are minimum sizes, and you cannot have a unit that is less than 800 square feet. And as you know, some of your homes in OB are 800 to 900 square feet.
Yes, I grew up in a home that was 748 square feet, so I'm well aware of that issue in Ocean Beach. But I
we
would
lived
like to
there our first 2 years of marriage, so it was a while ago.
Well, thank you again for joining us and giving us the update. I do hope to impress upon the senator that we do need some affordable housing in our area, as well as housing for the middle class.
These bills do not require, that there's a minimum number of units that are deemed affordable. And that's to give more flexibility to local communities and to the homeowners in how they decide to move forward.
Well, thank you, Nicole, for your comments. And I'm going to go, I said Chris, and then Craig, and then I saw you, Kevin, raise your hand. Chris.
Thanks, Andrea. And thanks, Deanna, as everybody else said. I think it was 2 meetings back. We got an update, and I was very curious to know a little bit more about SB 9 and some of the other bills you just mentioned. So regarding SB 9, I understand that there's the minimum requirement of 1,200 square feet per lot. My question is it a flat rule that only 2 lots can be created out of a single one, no matter the size of the originating lot? So if you had 7,000 square foot lot, you could cut that in half. You got 2. But if you had 11,000 square foot lot, you could still only cut it in half and have a second lot. You couldn't create a third lot. Is that correct?
Not using this bill, no.
Yep. Okay.
And the 2 lots must be as close to identical as possible in terms of square footage.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chris. Craig, you have the floor.
I believe, thank you, Diana. I believe in in relation to Senate Bill 10, that's the one that has to do with proximity to public transit, correct?
Yes.
Is there a distance requirement with respect to the proximity of the public transit line to enable the zone for that legislation to apply?
Half an hour walking.
So has anybody figured out what that works out to in terms of, I mean, I can walk a mile in a half hour, easy. So are we talking about a mile? I mean, seriously.
I thought it was half a mile.
I thought it was half a mile,
Seriously.
a half hour walking. I mean,
Seriously, that's about a mile and a half.
that's a mile. Yeah, that's a mile and a half.
Is it walking or distance?
Yeah, it's walking time or distance.
I understood it was half a mile walking distance, like following a grid. Is that not true?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a half mile walking distance that defines the zone that's eligible for.
Right.
Okay. Well, that obviously poses significant risk to massive densification of Ocean Beach.
Well, do
We've
you
got
have
exist-
do
we
you
have
have
existing bus lines.
two bus lines? You must have two separate bus lines serving that stop and meeting the requirement.
Well, I guess my question on that seems like playing devil's advocate. That seems awfully squishy because since buses are not stuck in place like light rail would be, so you add a couple more buses and you fulfill that requirement, and now you densify a community. I mean, it's just a matter of, and the other thing is, unlike rail, is there any provision? Well, I mean, assume arguendo that the bus lines are established, the builders build, the units are established, and then the city cuts the bus service. The density is going to remain, right? Because you're not going to make the people tear down the properties they built. So what's built into this to guarantee that they just don't add bus lines in order to allow the developers to densify, and then things sunsets, and now we got the density without the parking.
It's not our bill, so I can't give you an in-depth answer. I can research it and report back. It's Senator Wiener's bill, but he is from San Francisco, the Bay Area, and he's doing a bill that a high transit area like LA or San Francisco, you generally are adding more lines rather than removing them. And under the climate change provisions of what we're going to be looking at beginning now and in the next 20 years, and what will be allowed and won't be allowed to try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, transit will become extremely essential to meet those numbers.
Okay, thank you very much.
I will raise that issue with the senator, and I can report back to your chair.
Yes, thank you.
We would appreciate that. As you know, Ocean Beach has fought a long and determined battle to avoid densification, and we don't want to give up yet.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
But it's also you have other restrictions on what can happen in your community based on flood zones, your historic districts. it's, you know, and avail, whether it's a square bill or whatever.
I do believe it was Kevin that had his hand raised next. And do we have any other comments or questions? I know we ran a little bit over on this item. I apologize.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
So a typical 5,000 square foot single family zoned lot in San Diego, what is the maximum density, the maximum build out that could occur under these new builds? Is that a fourplex? Is it a fourplex plus a companion unit plus a junior companion unit? What would that look like?
Under Senate Bill 9, the maximum is 4 units.
All right.
And it's 2 main units and 2 ADUs.
Okay, so four living units, 2 standard dwelling units. All right.
Right.
Yeah, I've been looking at pictures of the governor's 7,000 square foot mansion on 8 acres in the suburbs of Sacramento while we're having this discussion, and I think it's just totally insane that the state is stomping out all the local planning and community planning efforts. And so it's I find this all a bit insulting that they know what's best for us. The battle, Craig, is not OB against San Diego, it's OB against the California legislature now, and it's these housing bills are just dizzying to follow, and it's I see why people just want to leave. It's the state taking over everything. The
If I can interject one short.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the reasons why housing is important is because the state's economic health relies upon having an adequate housing supply for the workforce. We've already heard from countless major employers, from high tech to biotech, and educational institutions. The UCs and state universities are having trouble getting associate professors to want to move here to teach because they can't find housing. And a biotech company, a high-tech company can't find adequate housing for their big-time executives that are going to be paid, you know, over $100,000 to come and design new chips for Qualcomm.
Yeah, I get it. Everyone wants to live in the same place. We got a whole lot of empty space in this state, and everyone wants to cram together and make everyone else deal with it. So I'm preaching to, you know, I get it. I just wanted to express that.
Thank you.
And I totally understand your position.
Do you have any other questions, Kevin?
Why does it cost so damn much to build here? I don't know. This is a builder giveaway, but I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Deanna, I just have one final comment before we let you go. And we do, like Kevin was just alluding to, we see a lot of trying to spur development, trying to get developers to build more. But when I talk to my developer friends and architecture friends, the restraint really now seems to be the price of lumber and labor. Are there any bills that are looking to invest in new technology to build houses so we can maybe steer away from lumber, as that's also kind of bad for the environment, cutting down so many trees as well, or making any other investments to have our development be more sustainable and less expensive?
There are discussions about more sustainable development and building supplies and what we can do to maintain the flow in of materials that are essential for building. It's a real challenge. The prices are sky high, and they're going to get worse as the countries around the world where we're getting the lumber are going underwater pretty much. And you know, the reality is that we're facing a real climate challenge, which is why Tony did Senate Bill 1 this year, which will provide funding specifically for coastal zone cities, communities like OB that need to have their infrastructure fixed so that you can survive the 10-foot increase in flooding that you're going to have, that you can get sewer lines replaced. You know, every single water treatment plant and sewage treatment plant in the state is destined to go underwater, and all will have to be moved inland to accommodate the needs of cities. And Senate Bill 1 is the first step towards helping communities and cities identify what needs to happen in terms of preparing for that by giving you grant money to make your list.
Well, thank you, Deanna. And I would actually, while you're here, I would be happy to request a meeting with Tony Atkins so we could talk about how SB1 funds can be used to help Ocean Beach. We already have a lot of flooding problems. And as you may have heard, our pier is at the end of its life cycle. And we have a lot of great ideas for a way that we can build back in a sustainable way. So I'll reach out to Reed and maybe we'll get that scheduled soon. But I really appreciate your comments, and I really do hope you look at the other side of what makes housing so expensive, as opposed, you know, because it's always build more, but you know, there's a lot that goes into it, and we want that to start being examined and, you know, legislated on as well. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now on to a super non-controversial topic. Brian from City Parks and Forestry is here to talk to us about a couple of, unfortunately, dying trees in our neighborhood. So Brian, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Andrea. And I don't know about controversial. I think there is some controversy with trees sometimes.
A little facetious, but go ahead.
Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen here. I do have a presentation, but I know we're strapped for time, so I will try to
Thank
get
you.
through this quickly.
No, that's completely my fault. Everyone will be here all night if we have to be.
All good. So I do like to talk about our citywide urban forestry program when I do presentations. So I'll make it very brief. We believe that we have over 200,000 street trees, over 600,000 trees in our parks, and possibly, based on recent inventories and LiDAR assessments, we think we might have more than 4 million trees on private properties throughout the city of San Diego. And then I always like to celebrate the fact that we're a Tree City USA for our 11th year. There are a lot of cities in California that have been Tree City USA for probably 40 plus years. So we have a lot of work to still do here, but we're moving forward. And I think we're doing a good job at this point. So, all right, let me see if I can figure out how to move forward. There we go. So I wanted to talk about our Torrey Pine street trees in Ocean Beach. Actually, I presented to you folks exactly like a year ago. I think it was like June 2nd or June 1st, June 3rd, something like that last year, in regards to removing 2 trees on Saratoga because they were dead. And there was actually 3 trees in this location. And so what we did is we tried to treat the 3rd tree back in July of last year. However, we evaluated the tree in January and it was also dead. So I think that tree was removed completely this week. I think they started removing it last week and I think they completed the job this week. So that's the update on that tree. The other tree that I wanted to bring to your attention is another Torrey Pine at 4633 Long Branch. This particular tree has been in the news in the past. There's been a lot of talk on the city side, as well as other folks talking about removing this tree because of its heavy lean towards the street. So a couple years ago, the city actually painted the curb red adjacent to this tree just to keep folks from parking underneath the tree. Partly because there's concern that the tree has a heavy lean and it's possible it could fail. Probably not going to happen. But more importantly, and you can't see it in these photos, but vehicles over time were hitting the tree and damaging the tree as well. And then if you look at this photo here on the right, you can see a white circle. There's actually a survey nail inside that circle. And the city of San Diego actually measures that survey nail almost every 6 months to see if there's any movement in the tree due to the severe 25% lean that that tree has. And for the most part, there hasn't been a lot of movement in the tree over the last, I think it's been about almost 20 years since that survey nail was put into that tree. So, I mean, you look at the picture here on the left, the tree actually looks really healthy, looks great, right? You can see it has a lean, but it doesn't look that severe. With trees, you know, even though they have a lean, a lot of times they will self-correct themselves. So you can kind of see that with this tree, that it's actually, the branches are kind of moving over to the left over time. Obviously, when you look at a photo like this, you can see that the lean is somewhat pretty severe. So, I mean, this is a fantastic resource for the community. However, the city of San Diego is concerned that it has this large lean to it. I believe the diameter of the tree is about 45 inches. So, you know, we're always concerned about safety in the right of way and what's going on here. The other concern about this tree too is that a lot of these Torrey pines in OB don't have a lot of growing space to them. So this is not the best photo. I just grabbed it from Google Maps tonight, but there is a sidewalk here that was recently repaired in the last 10 years. The sidewalk was shrunk. We did everything we could to try to save this tree and keep this tree in place, but even when we shrunk that sidewalk by 6 to 12 inches in width, there's still not a lot of growing space for this tree. And the other thing you can see here too is a lot of deflections in the street. So we've actually asked our roadways division not to repair this part of the street, so that in order to avoid cutting roots and so forth. So on to the challenging news in regards to this tree. In, I think it was February here, we had one of our arborists go out there, take a look at the tree. Sorry, I think it was April. And take a look at the tree because the neighbor adjacent to this tree in this house here reported that there was a branch that had a large crack in it. So we went out there and lo and behold, there's a large crack in the tree, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. But what we did is that very same day, we called our city contractor to remove that branch as soon as possible because we felt like it was actively failing. Yeah, so that was April 9th. And most of the branches on this tree are pretty large. So that was kind of alarming.
That's happening right now. Yeah.
We had a meeting a few days after that tree branch removal, decided that we would treat the tree for a turpentine beetle. If you look at this tree, and I think I have a photo here in the next slide, there's some dead needles in the tree and a couple of dead branches as well. So this just all happened like within the last few months, basically. So now we're keeping tabs on this tree pretty much on a weekly basis. See, I thought I had some good photos here, but now I'm not seeing them. But we're keeping tabs on this tree. We think that, oh, here we go. So here's the picture of the turpentine beetle. We actually had the contractor go up into the crown of the tree. You can see some exit holes on some of the branches. And then if you look at this photo here on the right, you can see some of the yellowing of the needles. So anyway, we removed that large branch. We're continuing to monitor the survey now. The good news is that we haven't seen any drastic structural changes in the tree in the last month or so. So that's great. I would say that we really haven't seen too much change in the dieback of the tree or dieback of needles or anything like that. So that's also good news. But the reality is that there has been some recent construction on the adjacent property to this tree, which could affect the tree roots. And there is now this infestation of the turpentine beetle. We did treat the tree, and we plan to keep treating the tree for the next, few months and see what happens and go from there. This is just an example of some exit holes from beetles in the Torrey pine. A little bit of background information. If you want more information about the program, sandiego.gov/trees. We always ask folks to use the Get It Done application for tree problems. To be honest with you, I think I scheduled to be on this meeting about a month ago, and we probably thought at that time this tree might be dead or close to dead at this time. So again, the good news is that the tree is still alive. The condition has not changed, but we wanted to bring it to your attention that it is a possibility that the tree could go into a major decline and die, just kind of like what happened with the trees on Saratoga. So that's my information on that. Happy to take questions. Let me know what you think.
Thanks, Brian. Do we have any questions? It's a little bit harder for me to see you raising your hands with this layout.
Can I assist?
I have a question, Andrea.
Okay, you got it, Kevin. Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you stop sharing your screen. I just didn't know if people might want to see the pictures again, but if you actually could just email me this presentation, Brian, if that's okay, and I can pass it along to anyone who has any follow-up questions. Thank you.
Definitely. You got it.
Yes, Kevin, and then of course Virginia. I was desperately looking for Virginia's picture because I knew she'd have a question. But
Hi,
Kevin,
Virginia.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, thank
you. Oh, sorry. So I really appreciate your presentation here. Does your department have a policy for notifying us or community members on removals, especially these are protected trees? Obviously, can't notify people on every single tree, but what's the policy for that?
Well, no, and it's only been recent, I would say, probably like the last year and a half, 2 years. We do leave a letter with the adjacent property owner when we need to go in there and remove the tree. Now there's certain situations where we might have to remove the tree, like during a storm situation where it's an emergency, and so we're not going to leave notification. In this kind of case, this is kind of a slow moving problem where if we feel like the tree is dead or nearly dead, then we will leave notification with the property owner. Usually it's a month, 2 or 3 months in advance before the tree actually gets removed. Obviously, we would like to do better than that and give better notification, but with the amount of trees that we have in San Diego, that's what we are able to do at this point in time. And, this is a very unique tree too, so I think we spend more time and more energy on this particular tree, probably more than any other tree in San Diego. So we're actively trying to keep it in place and keep it alive, keep it healthy. But again, just wanted to let you guys know that there is a possibility that the tree might be in decline at this point.
Virginia?
Hi, Virginia.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for the update. I had a couple questions. First, that branch that was removed, was that the lower, or actually the lowest branch of reaching out over the street in that direction?
I don't know if it was the lowest branch, but one of the lowest branches. And this
Uh-huh.
particular branch was actually going over the adjacent house.
Oh,
And then
okay. So not toward this.
I think I failed to say this too. We actually are planning to send the contractor out there either this week or next week to actually remove a couple of additional branches to that tree, just for public safety and for the health of the tree as well.
And yeah, I want to thank you for complying with the intent of the law for the protection of the trees is that we do support them during their golden years, their last few years, to keep them alive. And I don't think most people realize the benefits that a mature tree has, that they just grow in size and in benefits exponentially over the years. And it's a great loss to lose a big tree like that. I hope the treatment takes hold, and I don't think that it won't be growing rapidly. That should be sufficient to stay in place where it is and just live out its remaining lifespan. It has an end date, just like we all do. And I hope I don't see it when it arrives. But thanks for letting us know that the tree needs our support, and we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and thanks, Virginia. And I would say reach out to the neighbors if you can, or not just
Yeah.
you, that live on that block. I know a couple of folks have come out of their homes wondering what we're doing because we've been there a couple of times a week in the last month because we're concerned. You've pointed out in the past that Torrey pines sometimes have a natural lean to them.
Yeah.
And it's not just Torrey pines, there's other tree species that tend to lean more than others. And we call it, sometimes we call it a phototropic lean, like they're kind of leaning towards the sunlight or leaning in a certain direction to get, as much sun as they can. Other tree species don't do that as much. So yeah, that seems to be a common theme of Torrey pines. Again, for me, one of the bigger concerns is that these trees get so large and we plant them in such small parkway spaces. And that's really my big concern when it comes to public safety. So we'll see what happens. I'll do my best to update you all, in the next month or two if things change on the condition of the tree.
You, Brian. I think we would all be sad to see it go.
Yeah.
Not just for the tree loss, but I always park under that tree because no one's parked there. Chris.
Don't park there.
Chris, I think you have the floor next.
Well, definitely don't park there because you can't get that sap off your car, trust me. So I live about 3 houses away, and Brian,
good
we've
to
been
know.
observing your crew for a number of years and just following the progress of the tree, or the decline, I guess. And we were definitely watching for the solid 3 hours that the crew was out there in April, doing what they could to sort of balance and level the tree in terms of, clearing out the left side, so that it wouldn't fall, overly onto the other adjacent property. We love it. We love the trees on this street. This one is tricky, and I would be lying if I said, my thought process doesn't bounce back and forth between save that thing and what's the safety risk here. And I'm always reminded of the Torrey pine that fell on the top of Santa Monica a couple of years ago and killed some people.
Me too,
And
as well.
just
Yeah.
don't want to see that happen. And so appreciate the presentation. I think to Kevin's point, the best we can ask for is, keep us updated specifically on the street. I actually didn't see any flyers, any of the recent times you guys have been out. I know you said it's challenging to do that. But I think there's a lot of folks on the street that have been watching it and probably have notes that we could share and compare. And So just interested to see, I guess, the future, but keep us posted.
Yeah, and again, make your neighbors aware. You know, that's part of the reason why I'm here tonight. And one of our toughest challenges is planting new trees or planting replacement trees. So that's been one of the challenges with the Saratoga location where we had those 3 large Torrey pines. I don't think we've been able to plant new trees in those areas because we haven't been able to get commitment from the adjacent property owners to water new trees for 3 years. So just throwing that out there that we can always use a little extra help in planting new trees.
Okay.
I have a just as for a commitment for watering,
Mhm.
Ann Spaggy suggested that the Girl Scouts are always looking for a project. So if we can maybe get creative with that, not have the adjacent property owner have to do the work.
Yeah, if we can get some kind of commitment from someone else or from the community to plant trees and have someone else water them, I'm up for that as well. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you, Virginia. I see Tracy, and then I see Gregory Glassman, and then I am going to close this item because we do have a few more things to get to, but love the passion. So Tracy, you have the floor.
Yeah, just real quick question. What's the average lifespan of a Torrey pine in our region, and how old do you guys think this one is?
Oh, good questions. I mean, average lifespan of a Torrey pine, I think we feel like is a couple 100 years or more, like in its natural environment. For a tree in the urban environment, there's been studies, and I mean, not specific for Torrey pines, but for just street trees, only last like 10, 15, 20 years on average. Um, I would say more from experience, I think if we have a street tree last for at least 50 years, we're doing really good. Um, these trees in particular, we think they were planted in the 1920s, I think just based on age of the neighborhood, etc. is my guess. I hope that answers that.
Thank you. And then Gregory Glassman, if you're still here, and you want to speak, I saw your hand up, but it's lowered now. Okay. I do have one final question. I saw that the other tree that was being removed on Saratoga, just the large amount of wood that was there. What does the city do with that wood? Is it able to be repurposed at all, or does it just get straight wood chipped and dumped?
It mostly gets chipped and dumped. There's some liability issues with the city, so we don't offer wood to anyone or anything like that.
Okay.
I'm not going to stop you from taking pieces if you happen to be there on site. The city obviously is thinking about ways of reusing or repurposing urban wood, but I think we have a long ways to go in regards
Okay.
to that.
Well, thank you. Okay, great. Well, and again, thank you so much. Please do send me that presentation so we can post it on our website, and I can send it out to anyone who asks and wasn't maybe able to be here today. So let's move on to our next one, because I know that yes, thank you, Brian. We have a lot of community for these next 2 items, so I want to be just cognizant of their time as we push later into the evening. So Nicole, we have a representation of the parks plan that was tabled last month. I think since then, at the request of the board, I know you guys wanted feedback from the Mission Bay Parks Committee, since we were opining on what really fell under their region as well. Nicole did present the draft plan to them to see what they thought of our improvements. A lot of the improvements were already on their unfunded needs list, and they seem to like everything else. So they like what we're doing, and Nicole is back again, I think with even more community feedback to present the parks plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Thanks, Andrea. Yes, so after we had presented the parks proposal, park subcommittee proposal 2 months ago, essentially I've been going to community groups to garner their support. I presented the presentation at the Mission Bay Parks Committee, which was approved as submitted. And they have added all of the requested improvements to their unfunded needs list. As Andrea mentioned, several of the improvements are already on their funded needs list, including both the Dusty Roads Playground and the Rob Field Playground, as well as several improvements related to the ADA accessibility issues. And so I plan to speak with them a little further on how we can get the ball rolling on some of those already funded needs, but those were all approved. The Dusty Roads Park Council also approved of the plans for Dusty Roads Park, and the Peninsula Community Planning Board's Parks Subcommittee approved of the proposal. However, when it went to the full board, there was some confusion on whether Collier Park is in fact within the PCPB jurisdiction or if it's in the Ocean Beach jurisdiction. I believe there's two conflicting maps. One shows it in the Peninsula community and one shows it in the Ocean Beach community. And they voted to table approving it until the Ocean Beach Planning Board approved it. So sort of a catch-22 there. They're not going to approve it until we do. And if, yeah, so as well as I spoke with Misha, who attended our last full board meeting with some concerns about the placement of the playground at Saratoga Park. And he has explained to him that the idea behind the placement of the playground, which is of course geared towards children and caretakers with disabilities, the reason that it was chosen for that particular area is due to the proximity of handicap parking spaces. And so Misha and his group has since withdrawn their opposal to the project, or opposition to the project rather. And so everyone seems to be quite positive, a lot of positive feedback about the parks proposal. I also have a letter from the Pioneer Day School on Santa Monica, which I can read to you if you like. They are also in full support of the Saratoga Park project and are very excited that a playground that's geared towards, you know, disabled children and their caretakers could be coming to Ocean Beach. Would you like me to read that, Andrea, or I sent it over to you earlier today?
I saw it. If anyone is interested in seeing it, I can send it around to the board just in the essence of time. But it was a nice letter.
It was.
Thank you.
So
Is there
I do believe that we have community support from all of the organizations involved. Are there any questions that the board has for me?
Yeah, please raise your hand. And I know I was in touch with some community members as well that wanted to speak about the parks plan. Jane, is that a thumbs up or is that a hand raise? Thanks. Oh, great. Anthony, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to acknowledge Nicole's awesome work and just getting things done. Thank you so much for, you know, making things happen on the list of stuff you did. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thanks, Anthony. Do I have any other community comments? Craig?
I just wanted to thank Nicole for all her hard work on this, as well as her work on the Veterans Plaza issue.
Yeah, thank you. Do I have any other community comments or board comments?
I have some comments. This is Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, go.
I have a list of the CIP related and previous board related stuff regarding some of these parks. For the most part, it lines up pretty well. There's a couple items that I think should probably be added just for the sake of continuity. It's a little unclear how this unfunded needs list gets dealt with at the city level. So I want to have some continuity on that. I can go through those park by park. It's not every single one of these. Let me see here. And maybe that will elicit some other comments. Veterans Park, there's really not much to that. The only thing I noticed was there was some effort to resod that whole area, or a budget request for that. I was not clear if the CDC proposal included resodding that entire park or not, or if that's something that we should be requesting in addition to that. Maybe Nicole knows the answer.
I don't believe that's within the scope of the proposed Veterans Plaza. However, I'd be happy to reach out to Parks and Rec when we are having this discussion about the plaza to see if there would be a way that they can fix up the park a bit. The lawn space there has just been utterly ground down into dirt. And of course, that really takes away from the enjoyment of the area. I agree.
Yeah, and obviously that ties into, vendor ordinance issues as well. But I don't know how we're going to do a motion on this, but I think that should be added to our request in addition to the CDC plan, which is very comprehensive. With regard to Saratoga Park, when I'm talking about the beach park, the board has already supported that in a few different iterations of that. It was already in the public financing plan, so it's reflected in like DIF fees, but for some reason it's not on Park and Rec's unfunded needs list, and so it needs to be. But maybe this will get it there when we get this in front of them tonight. They had an additional item on their list to remove the berm on the beach side and add benches and some landscaping there to reduce the erosion. I think that's kind of what's done at the end of, I want to say Cape May. There's some landscaping there that sort of prevents the dunes from growing. So that's something just to, if anyone wants to push for that in addition, as opposed to that, rock pile there that's not really, you can't even really walk past it. Otherwise, not really much to talk about on that one. The Evers Park, these generally speaking have been supported in the past by the board and CIP priorities. This is obviously a more specific version of that, and I know we got council members here on that. I don't have anything to add to that one. Collier Park is absolutely within the Peninsula Planning Area. I don't know why anyone's trying to say otherwise. It's 100% in their area. It's always been. Certainly, we can advocate for that. The subcommittee plan included a request for a shade structure, or I believe like a gazebo structure, if I understand it. And I personally would strongly oppose that. We see what the gazebos turn into in our other parks. I don't like to design parks around our worst case scenario, but it seems like in this, with regard to gazebos, it just, we don't have the ability to police those, and they don't get used as intended. So I think any advocacy for gazebos should be removed from the
Kevin, if I can just interject there really quick. I believe the draft proposal called for an expansion of the picnic area, but not necessarily a gazebo structure.
Okay, there was something about a permanent shelter structure, which will become a a drug use shelter if we get it. So I'll double check that. And these are all things that we could approve. We could pass a motion with a few comments on there, and those adjustments could be made, and then these things could be submitted. We don't need to keep taking this back to the full board to go away for a second.
I certainly agree with that, and I hope not to waste any more of the board's time on, the minutia of a plan of this nature that encompasses so many different parks and different areas. I definitely appreciate community input, and I'm going to strive to just do what's best for the community. And I agree with your point on gazebos have in the past. If we have any, experience at Dusty Roads Park with their gazebo there, we do certainly see some issues around that.
I'm back. I heard you. The Spray Street Park, the board already voted to support that end of last year. So that's good. With regard to Robb Field, some of the city-wide and previous board actions involved advocating for a pedestrian path connecting to Dusty Roads. There was some talk, I think, from Park and Rec trying to put in a permanent soccer field with lighting and bleachers there. So right now they're using like generators and stuff. So that was at Robb, where where the other fields are. I don't believe OB actually advocated for that though. And then there was completing the pathway, which I believe is already part of an active CIP project. That's the entryway. And then just some turf improvements that are active in the CIP. So the CIPs that are active would not tie into these requests, unfortunately. The last one, Dusty Roads, is one that also, connecting to a bridge across the highway. We could advocate for that in addition to this. We previously prioritized expanding the parking lot on that one. That's not included in the subcommittee proposal. I think it absolutely should be. And we can easily just add that in after this meeting if the vote supports that. What else? The soccer field within Dusty Roads, there was some questions over whether that's feasible. I didn't know at the subcommittee that this was to be a permanent thing with fencing and lighting around it. I understood the lighting to be for the dog park. I don't think the soccer field or permanent lighting is appropriate in that park, especially with the proximity to the houses there and really the lack of parking. So if I was making a motion right now, I would ask the soccer field from Dusty Roads, maybe even advocate for that at Robb Field, and expand the parking lot. People are parking in the dirt area there. The rest of it, there wasn't really anything controversial with that. Some of the requests were in addition to previous requests. I wanted to just say in general, the goal is to get feedback, not to get approval on this stuff. So maybe that wasn't clear before, but so I think it might have actually discouraged some feedback. But anyways, let's make the most of what we have, and maybe we can get a motion with some tweaks. One more thing, Nicole Burgess had advocated for bike amenities in Dusty Roads on the along Nimitz there. And that's also not in our subcommittee recommendation. So if anyone wants to push for that, go for it.
Thank you. I see Tracy's hand up next. Tracy?
Yeah, hi. Okay, so Nicole, you're amazing. You really took this ball and you ran with it, and I completely appreciate that. But I do believe that there was, even though you may have been presenting this as a draft, I think people were still voting on it like it was a done deal, and that made me really, really nervous. The reason why it made me nervous is because it was a draft and it was not approved by the board in the first place. So I was really nervous, and that's why I read the motion to the Peninsula Planning Board, because I wanted them to know that the original plan was tabled because it wasn't final. So that was the whole deal. And I think that was one of the reasons why they voted no on it, because we had tabled it and they were like, well, why are we voting on something that the board had tabled on, right? So anyway, so that's just my, I wasn't sure how strongly you were pushing this is just for your feedback and not for your vote at this point. So that's why I was nervous about the whole deal. Since the board hadn't approved it, that's why I was getting nervous. Secondly, Kevin did a great job of compiling all of the previous requests with the current request, and he submitted a 8-page document like 15 minutes before the board meeting tonight and said, here you go. And I went, wait a minute, I can't like summarize all of this with what we currently have. I don't have time to like read it and incorporate it and the whole deal 15 minutes before a board meeting. So as well and organized as it is that Kevin did that job, I did not have time to really internalize it or to put it in perspective of the proposal that we're working on right now. So I would really, really advocate for at least one more subcommittee meeting so we can incorporate this, because I can't vote on stuff that I just can't. I can't vote on something that I don't see as final. And your proposal, your draft proposal was so well put together that I feel like if the new items that we have aren't also placed in that draft proposal, then it's going to be hard for people to go, wait a minute, was that included? I don't know if that was included. Maybe I don't, and it's like, until we have something in writing, I don't think that we should really be voting on it until we have something firm. And I don't want to have a motion that is like, we're going to approve this with 50 additional things added to it. And I know that's hyperbole, but it's like, we're going to make a motion and we're going to list out all of the new things that we're adding to it. And it's like, it would be better if it was just in the proposal that you created. So I'm very uncomfortable with the way that this has been ending up. And I personally, I can't vote for it right now. And I'm on the subcommittee and I can't vote for it right now because I don't think it's final and I don't think it's complete yet.
I understand your frustration, but I would say that I would push for calling a vote on this proposal as it stands. And if it doesn't go through, then we can go back to the drawing table. But I'd like to hear one way or another on it from the board tonight.
Thank you.
I'm prepared
Chris,
to.
you have let Chris get in his comment. But I do want to wrap this up because we're running far behind. Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Andrea. Good eye there. I was trying to jump in before a motion. Hey, guys, this is why I joined this board. This is such a good discussion, and I think there's been some really valid points the last four, especially Kevin with all the record keeping. And I was trying to figure out how does Kevin keep all these notes over the years, but very impressive. I also, to Tracy's point, well, no, let me go back to the people that commended Nicole and the subcommittee. I agree. I mean, I think that's where we're at is because it was such a well thought out draft that we were almost prepared to take action on it. And that's a kudos to the work really at hand and the good design and thought that was given to what a plan could be for these parks. Having said that, I have to land kind of where Tracy is at in that in any master planning effort I've ever led, engagement is half the battle. And so the engagement that you've done with some of these other planning boards and the discussions we've had to date, that's a good chunk. Personally, I would like to see a little bit more direct feedback from our community members. From my master planning experience, 500 is always the statistically significant number that you're trying to acquire for surveys or whatever it might be. I'm not saying we need to get 500 surveys from our community members, but I think a little bit more input from the community would be helpful, coupled with that reference check that Tracy just called out, make sure that everything that we're looking at, including in this plan, hasn't been dropped off from what the previous requests were, or that we're not double dipping in any instances. So I think for me, I'd like to do a little bit more homework in those two areas before we're asked to vote on something.
Thank you, Chris. I think I heard yeah. I think
I
I
feel
heard
like the salient point in the document that Kevin sent out just before the meeting was that the majority of these recommendations have already been approved by the planning board many times over. And so I wonder what has changed.
I think we got to shit or get off the pot. I'm going to make a motion.
Is that George?
No, this is Kevin.
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, your voice sounds so different. Go for it, Kevin. Please do.
I would move to approve the park subcommittee recommendations with the following amendments. That is to remove any reference to permanent gazebos or shelters, to add expanding the east parking lot of Dusty Roads Park, to remove the dedicated soccer field from Dusty Roads Park, and to add resodding of the Veterans Plaza Park. And I think that's it. That's my motion. I want to get this thing out the door and stop kicking it around. The other things that the board has previously advocated for, I would recommend that Andrea include like a cover letter that mentions or lists those in addition to this. They're already been voted on. We don't have to keep voting on things that we've already supported in the past. So that doesn't have to be incorporated. That's my motion.
Thank you, Kevin. Do I have a second or any discussion of the motion? Jane?
Second
Thank
it.
you. Jane has seconded the motion. Okay, do I have any discussion either from board members or community members? Virginia?
I think that the amendments proposed are relatively minor and wouldn't prevent me from voting on it right now.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi,
Okay.
my kids just really wanted to come and say that we go to Eber Street Park like every day. And they heard that they're doing these improvements, especially for my little guy here who just turned 9. And they wanted to come and speak up to make sure that something eventually is done to improve that park that they've been growing up going to. You guys want to add anything to that? And they're super stoked about the park down on Saratoga too, potentially having a playground there because they love going there every day in the summer too.
Well, thank you. We appreciate even our youngest community members getting involved as early and as often as possible. Okay, so since I don't see anyone else, I'm going to go ahead and ask Tracy to call the roll and the vote. Thank you.
Sorry, I had to get the paper. Okay, Melanie.
Yes.
Chris.
No.
Anthony.
Yes.
I am voting no. Jane. I think I saw her mouth move yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Tom.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
Richard.
I have to go affirmative on that. Yes.
George.
Yes.
Andrea.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
Nicole. Virginia.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Okay, thank you guys. So I think the next step I want to try, Nicole and I will go ahead and ask for a meeting with Teddy and City Council and see if we can start pushing these things forward. Thank you all so much. So next, and I sincerely apologize that this agenda got a little bit behind. We have a presentation. This was a community initiated action to rename the volleyball courts down by in the middle of Dog Beach, and the lifeguard, I think, Tower 5, rename them after a community member who recently passed and was heavily involved with the beach volleyball community in San Diego. So I have Stephen up. Stephen, are you here?
I am.
Okay, great. I'm going to turn the floor over to him, and I'm going to share a letter he did write to us, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the proposal, a little bit about the history, and then we'll hear any community comments in support or against, and we'll take a vote if we have a motion. Okay, Stephen, the floor.
Great. Well, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm here to get the support to rename the volleyball courts after George Stepanoff. Started with the city, and CODA sent me to Park and Recs and got support from Park and Recs. And then they said I needed to get the support of the planning board of Ocean Beach. There was a nice article about George in the Beacon just recently. He moved to Ocean Beach in 1958, the corner of Abbott and Voltaire Street. And in 1960, he put in the first beach volleyball court there in Ocean Beach. And from that day forward, every single pole that is at Ocean Beach, George has put in and maintained, so that for the last 60 years, that wonderful facility has been maintained. When the city vehicles knock over a pole or a vandal knocks over a pole or whatever, it has been George who has replaced it without even the city asking him to or the community asking him to, and maintain that facility for all of the public to use all of these many, many years. So over 60 years, George was the steward of that wonderful facility that the public uses, that high school uses. Anyway, it's been a great thing for Ocean Beach, and I only wish that I had started this while he was still alive, because I think he really is deserving. He was a city fireman, made battalion chief, was responsible for the hazmat. Just as an aside, he was a servant of the community, and Ocean Beach residents, his kids are still there. They're still supporting the courts as well. So I just think it's a really nice, proper dedication to the person that started the first pole that's been there, and it's gone for the last 60 years, just to name the courts after him. And when I met with the Park and Rec deputy director, they also identified the sign going into the North Ocean Beach parking lot that's already there. Looks like it has space on it to add the name that I certainly know that the community, volleyball community, would raise any funds to rework the wording on that sign. It actually looks like it could use a little sprucing up anyway. Anyway, I started playing there in the 70s and have been involved ever since as well. And we love the area. And it really was George that has done it all. And I think it's a proper, I think it's a wonderful thing if we could just name the courts after him and add him to a sign. So it's no extra expense. We're not adding anything to the facility. It would just be basically designating it that they're in his honor, and adding his name onto the sign that is already existing going into the parking lot. That's my proposal.
Thank you, Steve. And yeah, just to reiterate, any signage or any changes that you guys would be able to pay for that instead of the city.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the list, you told me yesterday, hey, it's better if we get some community support, and I barely got the word out, and there's already people here.
I
There's
see
going
it
to
in
be
the
a
comments. It's great.
celebration of his life in a couple of months that the family actually needs to send out, tell us who's coming, because they have no idea. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of people, volleyball people, fire people, Ocean Beach community that are going to be representing. I know we'll have no problem paying for any charge of the sign.
Awesome, thank you. And I see Craig did it in writing, but he motioned to support the renaming and dedication of the volleyball courts to George Mouse. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, thanks, Jane. Just beat out Anthony. You gotta say it, you know. Okay, great. Tracy, will you go ahead and call the roll? And I just want to thank you so much. This is a great outpouring of support. I know I play at those courts almost every Saturday, so it's good to know the history and see a community so behind it and dedicated.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Melanie. Melanie. Voting on dedication.
Yes.
All right. Chris.
Yes, and a great article in the Beacon. I didn't know him, but I was very intrigued by the story. So yes.
Anthony.
Yes, if just not for his firefighter service, but for volleyball too.
I vote yes. Jane.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Craig.
Yes.
Richard.
Make it happen.
George.
Yes.
Andrea.
Yes.
Newman.
Very cool guy. Yes.
Nicole.
And let me just say, I'm floored by the amount of community members that have turned up to support this. Thank you.
Virginia. Motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, I hope you guys can fundraise that money and we'll make it happen ASAP. I'll try to put a letter to get together either today or tomorrow and send it to you, as well as Jen Campbell and anyone else in parks that you think I need to send it to.
Yes, I'll get you his name. I think it's Michael Tully is the Deputy Director of Park and Rec, but I can email it to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, last one. I think we can still get out of here before 9 and have dinner at a more European time, I guess, if you haven't already eaten dinner. So moving on to final thing. As we know, maybe every other year we go through a CIP process at the city. So since we went through it in 2019, we're going through it again in 2021. Those comments are going to be due by August, and at the next CPC meeting, the city will be presenting, going over the CIP process, what qualifies as a CIP process, and all of that. So I wanted to get possibly an ad hoc group together, to meet, and to come up with a list of possible CIP projects that we can review and maybe vote on at the July and probably the August meeting as well if we need to continue it. I know last time we kind of just proposed projects at the meeting, so I felt it was a little bit disjointed, and we've been doing such great work in our ad hoc committees. I was hoping a few of y'all would step up and maybe just meet once or twice to get a good list of possible CIP projects going. Nicole, Jane, okay, Tracy. Nicole, Jane, and Tracy. Does anyone else want to be on the Capital Improvement Project Ad Hoc Committee?
I can do it.
Was that Melanie?
Yes.
Okay, we got Melanie. Kevin, did I see you raise your hand? Kevin? Okay. Anyone else? Any community members? Okay. I know John Ambert had emailed me about it earlier, but he might just want to come to your meetings and be a non-voting member. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the formation of an ad hoc committee to come up with a CIP list to be voted on at subsequent planning board meetings for the 2021 cycle?
I motion to approve that.
Thank you, Chris. I'm sorry, Tracy, did you get that? Newman's got a second. Tracy, let me know what you need help with. Yep. Okay, wonderful. And then the list, you, Kevin, Nicole, and Jane. And Melanie. Perfect. Okay, let's call the roll.
Melanie,
Yes.
Chris, Anthony,
Yes.
I vote yes. Jane,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Nicole. I didn't hear you. Did you say yes?
Yes, I did say yes.
All right, thank you. I just saw you sit back in your chair and I was like, oh, well, maybe, I don't know. Virginia,
Yes.
thank you. All right, we're good.
Awesome. Thank you all for stepping up. Okay.
I'll go ahead. I'll
So-
go ahead and send out an email to everybody and find out when a good time is. I'll go ahead and just do that as secretary.
Yeah, thank you. And then, like I said, CPC will be giving a presentation on it this month. So as many of you that can attend that CPC meeting and just see what the process is like, that would be awesome. So I'll send that agenda to you, and then you can send it to everyone. And yeah, I know we'll come up with some good ideas. You guys are nothing if not full of good ideas. Okay. I'm going to move on to, and so we have reports. The only big thing I have from the chair's report is next Monday, the 7th at 6 p.m. There is a mobility workshop. I encourage for all community members to attend about the Central Mobility Hub. Please, 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 if you have the time at 6 p.m. on Monday, do go. It's a good workshop. They really, really are just open to hearing feedback. And I really do think we can shape the face of this project that is going to, directly affect us and what kind of future transportation and public transportation amenities that we will be receiving. The link to attend that should already be on our website, but we will, of course, post it again on the 7th, reminding everyone to go. And that's all I have. I know Craig has a treasurer's report, so we'll hop to that.
Okay, the treasurer's report is that there is $1,029.62 in the account. And in addition, it is that time of year again when I submit for reimbursement to the city. So if anyone has either been reimbursed for any expenses that they've expended on planning board business, please get me the receipts for that as soon as possible. And if anybody has got an expense that they went out of pocket on for planning board business that they have not submitted for reimbursement, please submit the receipts for whatever those expenses were ASAP. I would like to get the request for reimbursement completed and off no later than the middle of June, because the next fiscal year starts in July. So that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you, as always, for staying on top of that and making sure we get all of our money back. Does anyone else have any reports?
I have a report, Andrea.
Go for it, Kevin.
There will be a project review committee meeting in 2 weeks. I also attended the Park and Rec board meeting, and the Regional Park Improvement Fund Oversight Committee meeting. Some updates from them. Park and Rec Department will be integrated with the Get It Done app in approximately December when that's upgraded. Right now, I think it's sort of reports get sort of shuffled around, so that they will be directly integrated with that as some of the other departments are. So maybe we'll get some better response on reports to that department. Also, with regard to our beach access, the Bermuda stairs is almost done with the design phase, and they think next quarter it may be ready to go out to bid. I don't have a timeline for when that might be actually constructed. I gave up hope on those sort of timelines. Also, Santa Cruz access stairs and Narragansett access stairs. Some people might not be aware that those were on the radar. Those are in the planning phase right now and will enter the design phase next quarter, most likely. The way these things are funded, when they are ready for the next phase, they usually will, especially when they get to the design phase, they prioritize funding for these things because they don't want them to sit and have permits expire. So that's a good sign if these do make it into the design phase, that they will be seen all the way through. I'm going to personally advocate for a couple ideas with regard to some of those stairs so we don't end up with more beachfront graffiti walls and open air urinals. So, but that's my report.
Thank you, Kevin. Do I have a report from anyone else? Anything going on? Tracy, Arts and Commission?
Arts and Commission, Arts and Culture.
Commission.
So yeah, so I just want to tell everybody and remind everybody that San Diego does have a Poet Laureate program, and that this month, so our Poet Laureate Ron Salisbury does these workshops every few months, and the workshops are there to help you create and to learn and to get feedback on your poetry. So this month, let's see, the Commission for Arts and Culture is inviting you to learn, create, and share your poems of resilience for a chance to be published in a special section of the 2021-2022 San Diego Poetry Annual. Let's see, he is sharing the workshop this month with Jim Moreno, who is a local poet. And beginning on June 4th, you can register for this third workshop. And the poetry project is titled Poetic Contract, Titles, the Poetic Line, Poem Endings. So I will put a link to that in the chat. And I'm also going to put, if anybody's interested in attending these commission meetings, they are 100% public and they are all done on Zoom. And I'm also going to post a link, I'm going to post the times and the days when these commission meetings happen. There's the main commission meeting, and then there's some subcommittees that people might be interested in attending. So we had a little bit of time change things going on. So I'm going to post that as well in the chat, and a link to where you can go to view the full agenda and any meeting information and minutes. So that is it for Arts and Culture.
Thank you. And Virginia, I see your hand is up. Hi, Nick. Do you have anything for forestry? I think you're still muted, Virginia.
I just had to report that our regularly scheduled Community Forest Advisory Board meeting was canceled again last month, but today was the Regional Forest Council meeting, and I would like to urge everyone to become aware of the mature trees that we have surrounding us. There's always a lot of enthusiasm for tree plantings. We have Arbor Day celebrations, and everyone loves to see the little baby trees, but the older trees provide so many benefits of shade and environmental benefits to us that please be aware of any changes in a tree. If you notice signs of beetles or damage to a tree, please report it with Get It Done and have the city look at it, any tree that's on city property. And we'll try and save those trees whenever we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Okay, any final things? Okay, I did want to say, Laura, I'm so sorry I didn't get to your question in the chat for Brian, but I did immediately email it to him. So when I get that response, I will forward it to your email. I'm so sorry about that. But if we don't have anything else, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:42. Thank you. You're all great. I'll see you.
Thank you.
I'll see you next month. Still 2 minutes under.
Thank you.